I'm JANNIE Pilgrim, and this is The Deal.
What's the deal on maximizing money?
What's the deal in office politics?
What's the deal on diversity in corporate America?
What's the deal on managing my career?
What's the deal on finding my dream job?
Welcome to The Deal. Today's topic is how to truly find a company that values diversity. I'm here with Chief Talent Officer and Diversity Leader, Lance LaVergne. Welcome, Lance.
So, Lance, I want to welcome you here today, and I'm really excited to talk about this topic. It's one that's near and dear to my heart, and I think it's really important for the listeners to understand that when they're going out in the job market, yes, of course, you're looking for a job that fits your skill sets, your background, and the culture of the organization. But I want to kind of put a little tickler out there and let them know that it's also important to find a company that values diversity and why that's important. So my first question to you today is, why do you think it's important for the individual to find a company that values diversity?
Well, simply put, it's really about finding a place where you can fit in. And particularly if you are not of the majority group or of the dominant group in an organization, it will be very challenging to be successful or comfortable in that organization if it does not in some way embrace diversity or embrace difference in the people who are there so that you can find your place in that organization. If it's an organization that's all about assimilation, then they're really not interested in diversity, either in diversity of their people, of thought, of experience. And so you'll spend a disproportionate amount of your time just trying to fit in, which will then detract from the amount of time that you can spend being a productive and contributing member of that organization.
That's really important. The paradigm shift is changed. Companies can no longer afford to be exclusive because of products, services they provide, and the world is changing. It's becoming global. So I think it's important for them to know that, because they need to know that companies need them to bring their diversity of thought. Now, what are your thoughts on how the paradigm shift has changed and we're a global market? How does that impact a person looking for a job, looking for an organization that values diversity?
You know, it's as the definitions of diversity have evolved over the past few years, the U.S. definition of sort of race and gender as the principal factors for diversity are losing their importance and are being replaced by a broader construct that values or looks at a host of different ways in which people are different, markets are different, customers are different, interactions are different. And so when more evolved organizations are talking about diversity and inclusion, which is the other element of the equation, they're thinking about now all of their people and all of the things that can either contribute or detract from effectiveness in that work environment or effectiveness around their business practices. And so where it had historically been an issue of you don't see people of color or you don't see women in certain levels or roles within organizations, that still is important to a lot of companies, because you want to make sure that you have an equitable distribution of people, which translates to an equitable distribution of talent across all levels of your organization. But now companies are also thinking about how that impacts the way they deliver their goods and services and products to their customers, how they engage their employees, how they think about expansion into different markets and different opportunities, either domestically or around the globe. And so diversity and inclusion have taken on a much broader context these days than they have in the past. But that's the case, I think, at more progressive and evolved companies, which unfortunately is probably in the minority when you look across the Fortune 500, say, or the Fortune 1000.
What are some of the best-in-class companies doing around diversity and inclusion?
Yeah. When you and it's hard to say which are the best companies, and so you have to really kind of rely on some of the proxies that are out there to help you determine that. You know, you look at companies that show up on the Diversity Inc. top 50 companies for diversity, or Fortune or BE or these other organizations, Working Mother Media, that identify companies that have great practices based on the surveys and the methodologies that they've all developed to try and determine which companies are good or which are not. So if you take those companies in that universe as the sample set of companies that are doing it well, what you'll find is, first and foremost, there's the issue of representation, particularly here in the U.S. And companies that are regularly recognized for their their advances in diversity and inclusion are companies that have good representation, of a good diversity in their representation, not only in the whole organization, but represented in senior levels of that company as well. So in some organizations, you'll find great diversity. Lots of people of color, lots of women, lots of people who are, with disabilities, LGBT, veterans, but all this, whatever the status is. But you tend to find them in the lower levels of that organization, junior positions, and they're not rising or moving up in the organization at the same rate that you find them in the lower part of the organization. Right. Good companies for diversity, for D&I, show advancement of people of all demographic groups into successively higher levels in the organization. And they recruit people laterally into that organization as well. You'll find higher levels of engagement. If you go to an organization and ask somebody who is of the majority group about diversity at that company, they can articulate for you why diversity is important there, what things are happening from a diversity perspective in that organization. And what that indicates is that there is broad messaging around the importance and that people are engaged around the topic. And it isn't just focused or relegated to a select group of people within the company who might care about diversity, but it's a broader corporate-wide initiative. That's a real important element of it. If it's only, your protected class people who talk to you about diversity at a company, you might want to rethink that organization, because that means that the rest of the population, the majority culture, doesn't get it or doesn't care. And so it'll be a pretty tough conversation as you try to advance that with them. Look at the messaging and the image portrayed by that organization. Look at the business practices that they engage in to see how D&I, or diversity in particular, works its way into that. If you go to their website, do you see a variety of different people? When you look at the markets in which they are engaged, are they broad-based, and are they culturally sensitive to the markets that they're in? If the company has good diversity in its business practices, chances are there's going to be good diversity in their people management programs as well.
That's great insight.
We'll be right back with Chief Talent Officer and Diversity Leader Lance LaVergne.